Hi there, future Ps. This is Wasim Asgar. I'm a licensed professional electrical engineer in the US and Canada. I've authored several books on the topic of FE electrical and PE power exam preparation. And I also run popular exam preparation programs for FE electrical and PE power. In this video, I'm going to go over a few questions that my students asked me regarding NFPA 70E during PE power live training. NFPA 70 is an interesting standard. It has been getting a lot of attention over the last few years because of increasing safety awareness. Generally, it is considered to be the arc flash standard, but in reality, the scope covers a lot more than just arc flash. There's some interesting calculations in NFPA 70E, which strictly speaking don't even form part of NFPA 70 because they're part of the Annex D IEEE 1584. But these calculations get a lot of attention from students because they're numerical. We as engineers like to do numerical problems, plug and chug if possible. But you'll see me pointing out several pitfalls in this video when you're going through these calculations. Even though IEEE 1584 has actually provided us a few sample calculations, despite that, I find students repeatedly making silly errors on these calculations. Before we jump into the content, I would really appreciate if you could like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. On a weekly basis, I'm creating content for FE electrical and PE power exam preparation, as well as on other topics related to power systems engineering. So without further ado, let's dive into the content. So this was, again, as I said, sort of an open-ended blanket request that please do J, K, and L for me. So let's take a look at K. Calculate the incident energy. I've given you the units of measurement. If the arcing duration is 0.4 seconds and the distance between the possible arcing points and the person is 1,000 millimeter. Okay. Now this basically builds on the previous question so that you can see that I am extracting, carrying forward the value of IA, which is 16.76 Ka. These details are all provided to us. Okay. And the constants that we need to use are also given to us. Okay, not directly, but indirectly because we have an arc in a box, correct? We have a grounded system, correct? Distance exponent for MCC in a box, and this is for voltages at or below 1 kV, right? All of these details you need to extract, guys, right? Looking at the solution, sometimes it appears too easy that, I should be able to figure it out on the exam. But you guys know that on the exam, unless you have developed like memory muscles, right? Not memorization, but you know the framework, the steps, the blueprint, chances are that you'll probably struggle. Okay. All right. Step-by-step calculation. Calculate normalized incident energy. I spoke about this earlier. Why are we starting with E subscript N? The incident energy that we have to calculate, let me ask you this. Is it E or E subscript N, the final answer for this problem? Is it E or E subscript N? E, correct? Only a handful of students are responding in chat. That's fine. There are a lot of other students who are on the call. I'd appreciate if everyone can participate, but that's okay. E and E subscript N. We are starting from E subscript N. Why? If our goal is E, why are we starting from E subscript N? What's the reason? The reason is this is the methodology, correct? Even if the given scenario does not fit the bill, right? We always need to calculate E subscript N first in order to calculate E. Now, would you be able to figure it out during the exam? Maybe. Maybe you read through the standard. Maybe you go through the sample calculations and on the fly, you're able to figure it out. But my question is, my pushback on that is, why leave it for the exam day? Why leave it for those 8 hours to figure things out when you have multiple weeks and multiple months to actually do the practice? Okay. If there's one takeaway for NFPA 70, especially this incident energy calculation business information Annex D, then it is that you need to put pen to paper. Okay, guys. And those of you who are already in the program, you have more than enough opportunities to do that for all different or a lot of different variations of these calculations, okay? Now, once you figured these out, calculating this is fairly simple and straightforward. Now, what I find is that, in fact, if I don't remember, I don't have the options in front of me. The book is somewhere in my office, but I think I have left 4.82 joules per centimeter square as one of the options. And some students, trust me, they stop here, okay? Because they don't know the difference between E subscript N and E. Okay, they're like, oh, I got something that is in options A, B, C, and D, right? The units of measurement in the question are matching joules per centimeter square. So let me actually select this as an option. And we all know very well why this is incorrect. This is incorrect because that's not what the question is asking, right? If the question is asking about the weather and you are telling the day of the month, right? That's not exactly the same, right? So our next step is calculate the incident energy E. And this formula for E actually makes use of E subscript n that we have calculated. And I think this is 0.2 and this is d raised to power x. All of these parameters are extracted using the tables, using the details for the given scenario. And then it's basically just plug and chug. Okay, guys? Now, these equations are a little bit messy. When you're punching them in the calculator, this is another area where people make mistakes. So what you can do is you can actually break it into smaller pieces. You can create some factors within. So multiply 4.184 with CF, which is 1.5, E subscript 10 you have calculated. So put it under one bracket and use it as a constant, right? Divide t by 0.2, you'll get something else. I believe it's 0.2, right? 0.2. Please correct me if I'm wrong. And then 6 to the power of 10x, d to the power of x. So multiple variables over here, two variables. So punch it properly. Okay. And this is how it works out. So when we go through, again, this type of a problem, the key insights building on problem 3.3J is that the good idea to break the calculation into smaller steps, okay? Identify the constants for given scenario. In this case, there were multiple constants, right? Starting out with K1, K2, right? G itself is a constant. Then you have X, which is a constant, and they are not directly provided to you in the problem statement. I believe D was, but X wasn't, right? We have to extract these and CF as well, right? So we have 1, 2, 3, and 4 constants that we had to figure out. Okay. And unless you have done tons and tons of practice with these problems and developed that muscle memory, okay, you are most likely going to struggle. Okay. And at any given point in this calculation, I can take different routes, right, to confuse you. And on top of that, I can actually solve it all the way and come up with B, C, and D as familiar options that you can choose from. All right. And the last but not the least in that same series of emails is 3.3L. Calculate the arc flash protection boundary for the given MCC based on the conditions and results of the previous problem. Assume that the incident energy at boundary distance is 5 joules per centimeter square. So arc flash protection boundary, what happens at the arc flash protection boundary? Why is it so important? Can you give me a number? Do you guys remember there's a magic number when it comes to arc flash protection boundary? 1.2. Exactly. Second degree burn distance. And what is a second degree burn? Second degree burn is a type of a burn where the skin can naturally heal and recover from. All right. Okay. It's still very nasty. Okay. It is still very painful, but it is the type of a burn from which the skin can recover. Okay. So the magic number is 1.2 cals per centimeter square. This is the incident energy level. at which the arc flash boundary starts and the PPE requirements kick in. And this is equivalent to 5 joules per centimeter square. Okay, so notice how this problem is kind of worded in an interesting way that 1.2 everyone remembers, right? It's a little bit easier number. At least in my lectures, I mean, that's the number I've emphasized, but in the problem statement, I've sort of given you extra bit of information. This was not necessarily really required, right? But some of you, for at least a brief period of time, might be thrown off balance. Does that make sense, guys? Did you feel confused a little bit as to where the 5 joules per centimeter square is going to come, in play? That's basically 1.2 cals per centimeter square. Okay, but with a different unit of measurement. Now, this is a crucial distance because, as we discussed, second degree burn, therefore it's important to calculate the correct distance to ensure safety. So normalized incident energy calculated from the previous problem. Boundary incident energy is 5 joules per centimeter square. And then the distance exponent is this, D is this, T is this, CF is this. So this problem builds on the second one. One of the feedback I get from students is that, Wasim, when we go to the NCA sample exam, and students obviously have gone to the FE electrical exam as well, in none of the exams, basically you see one problem building on top of the previous problem. In some ways, that is only fair because for whatever reason, if you're unable to score a point on, let's say, problem number 5, then if the problem number 6 builds on problem number 5, technically problem number 5 and 6 each have a weightage of 2. Are you guys following me? It's pretty obvious, right? Intuitively, right? So they keep each problem independent so that they are equally weighted. Now, if I want to test you on arc flash protection boundary, right, on the exam, what would be a practical and fair way for me to test you if I cannot build on top of different problems? What do you guys think? It's common sense. I'm going to test you directly with 3.3L, correct? Right? Because in order to solve 3.3L, you have to calculate E. In order to calculate E, you have to calculate I subscript A, correct? Does that make sense? So the reason I take this stepwise and compartmentalized approach in my study guide is that it is designed not only to help you prepare for exam-like questions, right? But also to help you understand the concepts, to help you learn the intermediate steps. Okay, guys? And same thing with all the questions, most of the questions that I ask outside of maybe mini exam and computer simulated practice exams. The quizzes are sort of designed the same way, homework assignments sometimes are the same way. Now, this is the equation, and we actually have everything for this equation. If you arrive at 3.3L with incorrect solutions for JK, and that's why the student requested me wholesale to do these 3 problems, right? You don't stand a chance to get the right answer for 3.3L if your calculation for IA was questionable and the calculation for E was questionable, right? And then obviously you need to be really careful. Look at what's going on here, right? These are exponentials and units of measurement needs to be taken care of and so on and so forth. Okay. Now in this problem, the boundary incident energy EB is fixed actually. It is not subject to change because we define the incident energy at which the second degree burn happens as 1.2 cals per centimeter square, which is 5 joules per centimeter square. This value is crucial as it represents the threshold for a second degree burn. Critical distance, I mean, this has to be calculated. The distance is critical for safety. And the empirical validation, the equation is based on empirical data, the trial and error basically, right? And I commented in my on-demand course that a lot of our flash equations derived primarily by initially in 1970s by Dr. Ralph Lee were essentially a result of regression analysis, right? These days we can do regression analysis very quickly in Excel. I've done that for a few of my calculations in engineering economics, financial engineering and whatnot, the courses I took at graduate level. But it's very simple and straightforward. The idea is that you have a scattered points, right? If this is an XY axis, and you have multiple variables. So the regression analysis equation gives you equation of the straight line best fit, basically. Okay, the line that is going to best fit this data point. That's why the constants are so messy. Okay. Now, looking back at these three problems, I think there's a pattern. What is my recommendation? Number one, you need to go through these practice problems yourself, guys. Okay. You need to make the effort to actually work through the equations. You may struggle, you may not get it right. In fact, in my opinion, there's no reason why you should struggle after going through the detailed on-demand lectures and the live classes, okay, and watching me solve a bunch of these questions in lecture through the practice problems that I solve for you. Test yourself with the quizzes, test yourself with the mini exams, test yourself with the study guide problem set, test yourself with the homework assignments. And then at the end, you also have a full-time computer simulated practice exam. Okay, so you need to put pen to paper. Be super careful. Pay attention to the pitfalls that I've mentioned, the units of measurement. Okay, handling these factors exponentials properly, dealing with the logarithm properly, working out the constants based on the given scenario, interpreting the phase voltages, the line voltages, and keeping an eye on what is being asked. Is it E or E subscript N? Okay. Don't, when I say paraphrase a problem, you got to paraphrase a problem to make it more easier for you to follow. The goal is not to create a new problem out of an existing problem. Okay. Sometimes students read too much into a problem, so much so that they create new problems out of it, for which obviously you're not going to get any point. And sometimes they try and just fit a problem into mold of another problem they might have done, and they miss out on a lot of important details. Okay. I hope this is helpful. I'll take Chris's question. Should the empirical and theoretical equations give you roughly the same number? Yeah. I mean, we don't have any precise equation because of so many factors that are involved in Arc Flash. And as you progress into section number 4, you're going to hear me say, and those of you who already have experience in the field, you know that anything and everything that is related to protection, Arc Flash is basically part of protection and control. Protection is sort of a blend of science and art. Okay. It is probably one of those areas where, as a power systems engineer, you can get a little bit creative because it's an optimization problem that you're solving, right? And a lot of times the parameters are kind of flexible. You have to make certain compromises. So even regardless of whichever calculation methodology you're using, I mean, it is sort of in a ballpark. Does that answer your question, Chris? The one thing that I always tell engineers, all of my students, and I stay in touch with my students even after they are done with the program, and they're licensed professional engineers. And you can check out my LinkedIn close network group. If you're not on it, feel free to send me an invite. I'll add you guys there. I do get emails and direct messages and whatnot. Always have a logic and a reason for whatever you are doing, right? As long as you document the rationale, the logic, the reason why you decided A over B, right? In 9 out of 10 times, the worst that can happen is that somebody would say, okay, you know what? B was actually better than what you approached for this reason, right? But if you're all over the place and just going by intuition, copy pasting, and not having a solid reason for what you're doing, that's where your competency and credibility gets questioned. Whatever your train of thought is, I mean, try and come up with the best possible answer, right? And then make sure that you are able to articulate it, right? Okay, that is a common skill, a very frequent skill that I've seen in really high quality engineers, that they always have a reason for why they do what they do. And if somebody comes up with a better solution, they are more than, happy to stand corrected, right? But at least have a reason for everything that you do. If you like this video, then please don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Feel free to ask me any questions in the comment section of this video below. You can find tons of success stories of my FE Electrical and PE Power students over here. And if you want to learn more about preparation of FE Electrical and Computer exam and the PE Power exam, then check out these playlists over here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon in the next video.